the state's allocation, which is really very attractive in terms of pushing them and the economic survey in fact demonstrates that the spend even last in this current year is only I think 30%. Is it possible to maybe release it based on performance? I ask this because we work at the state level in sanitation and we know that this funding is not easily available for their own shoring up of capex, where it's even possible for them to draw on it. So how can you push these states to use that capex more? And you raise a specific point on municipal bonds, which were very important again in this whole exercise. I wasn't sure what that linkage was. You mentioned it was to do with helping the municipalities come up the curve so they can issue municipal bonds. How can we help in this journey?
States using the money which goes to them in the name of 50-year capital expenditure loan that the central government is giving is not all that disheartening as you would have inferred from the economic survey. It delayed in its launch a bit because states had to come up with proposals and then to set it rolling. Last year's 1 lakh crore, about 80% of it was unconditional, so the states could use it the way they want, provided of course it's used within that year and for capital expenditure. The rest 20% had all the conditions attached to all the reforms and so on, one nation, one ration card and so on. This year that has been increased because of two reasons. One is we felt that there was a good appetite for more funds and continuation of the scheme. That's not possible if they didn't absorb it last year. One. Second, we've also increased though. Last year was 1 and this year is 1,30,000. And this year too, we will have a good share which will be left to the discretion of the states to use the way they want it. And also a portion of it subject to conditions, one of which is the municipality being encouraged to go for municipal bond issues, building the unity wall. In other words, they're also trying to have many of those schemes which we think will speed up the capital expenditure together with carrying forward the reforms. Also trying to build up accommodation for police personnel in the states. So those conditions will be. And actually this year we've been talking to the officials, with the chief secretaries of the state governments, to say that this moves fast and moves early. So my strong belief is in the month of April itself, there should be substantial number of proposals coming from many states, so the release can happen straight away. A lot of these discussions have already happened as to what is the scheme, how is it tailored, how is it different from last year, is it going to be very onerous to implement and so on. So all the differences have been ironed out, and I expect the project proposals from the states to come early in February, April itself. So unlike the last year, this year it will start rolling out faster.
Really feels like a business. Good evening, madam. It's very hard to read the budget and try to see if something has been missed. I think nothing has been missed, so all congratulations, you and your team. But madam, there was one issue that FICCI had been pressing for very hard, which perhaps is just escaped attention. There is a lower tax regime for people who start businesses by 2024, by end of 2024. There are some people who believe it should be extended year by year. And when we had a pre-budget meeting, FICCI had this hard that I think we should take a bold step and announce for 5 years this window. Because you're not going to reduce the tax because it's already at a kind of minimum. So you're not going to reduce the tax, you might as well increase the period. Coming out of COVID, a lot of people are making their investment plans. So let's take an example, even as a domestic company, if by even February 2023, if I decide to put in an investment, there is probably no chance that it will be operated before 2024 March. So you're left in a limbo. So what happens? You prefer to actually either do away with the decision or defer the decision. So if we are trying to capture people coming in to invest in the country, maybe a longer, maybe not 5 years, PTS press for 5 years, maybe not 5, but at least longer period could have been considered. So I think we still have time to do that if we think it wrong.
On Sandeep Somani asked questions to
Thank you, Shubham. Well, Finance Minister, I think the only word to describe this year's budget is absolutely, it was a brilliant budget. I think you've covered all the territory and you've got left very either for growth or for a more equitable growth. And you are actually walking the roadmap that you had showed us to the country a few years ago. So my compliments to you and to your team. I just have a suggestion, madam, which is not budget related, and it's been brought to your notice. The government has been doing a lot of things in terms of ease of doing business. There is currently one constraint, unfortunately, in the CCI not being able to take decision because it does not have a quorum. I would just recommend some early resolution to that. Thank you.
So, Shubham, may I?
yes.
Nirmala ma'am, most heartening to hear your views on tourism. It's the first time, really, a finance minister has taken it upon herself or himself to put such a focus on tourism. Extremely heartening to hear that there is going to be so much money put into infrastructure, whether it's airports or whether it's railways. And we do believe that it is, of course, it's a long-term thing, but it will certainly help us. So for me, it's just compliments to you and from the industry, from the travel, tourism and hospitality industry. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Ma'am, at the outset, I join President and others for congratulating a fantastic budget. There is nothing on the taxation which I have a suggestion to make. One thing the government which you mentioned is government is continually removing unnecessary compliances and regulations. And but there is still a long way to go, so we would like to work strongly with your department and the government to give more suggestions on how to make life easier for honest businessmen. So similarly, the point was you and the Prime Minister have been saying you want to trust the taxpayers, but unfortunately there is one suggestion in this budget that if you send money abroad, which is tax-paid money, you will further pay 20%. We are told that some people are misusing, else everybody has to suffer. So I would suggest those who are misusing should be hauled up, but honest taxpayers should not run from pillar to post and be taxed again on his tax-paid income. For us, whether we spend in India or abroad makes no difference as long as we have paid our due taxes. So this is my request.
May I call on Mr. Girish Manava?
As a tax, we are trained to find errors, and our eyes only go to say what's wrong. And in that light, I must just compliment you that there is really nothing much that one can find in the provisions of the finance bill which one would really be negative about. I had two suggestions to make now. One is they have put a restriction of 10 crores on investment into a residential if capital gains have arisen. And there are two limbs to it. One is if capital gains have arisen on sale of a residential house or other assets. And I can understand to an extent that these provisions apply to other assets. If somebody has sold equity shares, got gains, you don't want that money to be used for a residential house as a tax shelter. But extending this from one house to another may not be warranted. So, for example, people have got houses, they have inherited there for a very, very long time. They are selling that house, they might make a substantial capital gain, but they're just buying another house, substituting it. And extending that to section 54 may be reconsidered. 54F one can relate to. That was one suggestion. The second suggestion, madam, which I wanted to leave with you is that there has been a proposed change of taxation of REIT and InvIT, which has caused quite a flutter. And the proposition which I wanted to make is that if there is a redemption of units, REIT units, the excess could well be taxed as capital gains, but to treat it as other income and tax it at full rate maybe is not warranted. It is really killing this industry, which after a lot of effort has taken shape and is inconsistent with how things happen globally. So I would request that this be reconsidered back.
Sunil, would you, Sunil Sangha?
Thank you. Honorable Minister, the editorial of Times of India today, the headline summarizes what we are hearing, the sentiment here. It says, Madam Finance Minister, this is probably the best budget from 2014. And I think we all agree to that. I have a suggestion, there's no question.
Actually, in order to get, I think, Finance Minister for us to gainfully utilize the time, if there are any questions on the direction of the budget of the long term, I would really appreciate that.
No, suggestions are good.
And suggestions are definitely welcome, but I would like to hear you as well.
So the suggestion is with regard to disinvestment and the privatization. Rightly so, it has not found place in the budget speech, and the target also got reduced because obviously the market condition, etc. The privatization has two angles. It also creates the efficiency in the economy, and that does not depend so much on the market because it's a long-term privatization. You did a miracle job, brilliant job in Air India last year. That's one suggestion, that if the privatization can continue, or maybe even it can be stepped up, that will be good for the economy. Thank you.
Please.
Now I want to also compliment you as other members are presenting a fantastic budget. I have two questions, ma'am. One is, how does it feel to present the first budget of Amrit Kaal and the largest budget since the 75 years of independence, which is more than $500 billion? One. Second, ma'am, there's a huge emphasis on infrastructure building in India. 10 lakh crores of capex, 2.5 lakh crores in railways, then airports, etc. I know this government is a master of not just vision but also execution.
Later, the gas pricing in view of dollar parity or otherwise is going up. So environmental conscious is one of our dear are languishing, and banks are also suffering, developers are also suffering. This is one appeal I would like to make. Thank you, ma'am.
May I come in now?
Sure, yes.
I am representing healthcare sector. So first of all, I would like to thank you that you have taken care of healthcare sector. I just wish to share one thing with you that in Uttar Pradesh, our chief minister has started a scheme that with every district there has to be a medical college. It is very good for my state. So I wish if you can, replicate the same thing in the application, so it is going to be very helpful for healthcare. Thank you so much.
I restrict myself to the another 9,000 would definitely be benefited by it. The one thing which you have done is try to discipline the large scale sector so that they pay in time in 45 days, otherwise it would not get up. I think its only thing is that how this would be really implemented. I think that's one thing which really needs to be seen. Packaging to be looked into that particular green growth sector, so that's a very, very important area, and it cuts across all the sectors of the industry. And similarly, for PLI, I would say that the MSMEs should also be considered in the for the PLIs, because again, they go through, get cuts across all the sectors. Why I mentioned about packaging is because you see they closely work with the food processing industry, and what I mean, as they say, what IT has done for urban India, food processing will do for rural India. I think that's the kind of importance which is there, and this really needs to be considered. And lastly, is two more things which I would say that one is the amnesty scheme for customs. Similarly, when the labor codes come, I think there would be a need to have an amnesty scheme for the earlier labor laws, the cases which are pending, so that one gets a clean slate and one comes out of that. And the last one from my side is the virtual AGM. I mean, like for the board meetings, you have already done virtual. I think it would be important that the AGM should also be considered to be done virtually. Thank you very much.
On one of the points that you made, because I want to be sure if I heard you right. Your possibly the first point that you made about the 45-day payment thing, and said you're wondering how it will be implemented.
Yeah. No, because you see, the act 45 days was already there in the act.
And we've also sent those who have not done it, meaning those who have not paid them, MSME may not claim any offsets that year. The government said that. And now I'm being asked who's going to implement it. Implement what? Pay the MSME?
I think the intent there is extremely clear, ma'am, and I think
if Indian large industries don't at this point in time, given the recovery pangs that most of us are suffering, we want recovery, we want speedier recovery. don't extend that rightful deserving gesture. Pay them who have delivered on services. Pay them who have delivered on the goods as per contract. Within that 45 days, recovery cannot be any one sector or any big or small company's prerogative. India has to recover. Payment dues cannot be sitting locked up where you see them who are actually working together with you. And if they don't get their payment in time and the government repeats its intent, how is it going to implement? It cannot be a question. It's got to be implemented. By who? By all of us. Government departments, government-owned PSPs, government enterprises, and
As I said, I think the intent is very clear, and certainly on behalf of India, that this is something that a message that we will keep on reiterating, because as you said, I think there is, besides the fairness aspect, there is also the recognition that MSMEs are inherently vulnerable to billing. Awareness of and preparedness for digitalization facilities. Because again, the inherent assumption is that the large companies either know what is to be done or the consultants to go to. But the next and the next years, the challenge will be there. And they will, I think the government's intent again is very clear to help them. We have to just understand the awareness and preparedness, and that can be the basis of policy. David, question. Thank you very much, ma'am, and congratulations once again for an excellent budget. I have one suggestion and one question. One suggestion is, I am in renewable energy, and to achieve the net zero target, I think we require something like, for 2070, about $10 trillion to come into the country, both in terms of debt and equity. While the central government policies are very transparent and clear, we are facing a lot of problems with some state governments who do not toe center's line. For example, reducing PPA price, permitted price at their own will. This sends a very negative signal about the country overseas. So this some mechanism can be done that they honor the PPAs. That's one. A brilliant thing which you've done in this budget is mangroves. Now, you can sequester carbon because mangroves sequester more carbon than any other tree. And you had announced a carbon exchange for the country, which will be a game changer because those carbon credits can be sold overseas. I know governments coming with a carbon exchange. Can the private sector also get into carbon exchange as one? And I know government is not very keen on crypto, but there is a methodology by which we can digitize it, and the country can have its own coin in the carbon trading exchange, which can be sold overseas. Because today the demand for carbon credits overseas is phenomenal, and that could be one of the ways to raise capital or have a bond for renewable energy projects in the country. I think there's room for one last question.
Good evening, ma'am. When being repetitive, I also join everybody in compliment of budget. But I think the underlying factor is your ability to listen and grasp what you listen, which I have seen in the past interactions that you had with me. One of the items that you mentioned in your budget speech was parts to open cell. Obviously, since it's part of your budget speech, I think the government has recognized the television industry as something that should be looked into. I'd just like to make a few comments. Currently, there is no bonding facility in the country. Therefore, the reduction in duty for parts of open cell will not have any immediate impact. On the other hand, the current television industry in India is only 20 meters, as against about 85 million in China. There are two reasons why we are not really reaching the potential. A large part of television industry is still having GST of 28%, which under no stretch of imagination is a single dollar, which has led to the television industry being at least 35 to 40% coming from the grey market. And unless this volume factor comes into play, the bonding facilities will not come in India, which you are trying to encourage, because that investment is completely volume driven. And so I would like you to really see that first, actually you reduce the duty on the open cell, and when the facility for bonding comes in, then you can create a differentiation. And definitely look at the GST of 28%. It is a huge export potential, and I think there is nothing lacking in India to take on China in that. That's just possible.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. Since you have specifically, I've always found the reports that you do on certain sectors or certain market situations or opportunities and challenges very useful. FICCI should actually proactively look at the stage of development that we are in and also the Amrit blueprint that the government has given, one during this budget and also through Prime Minister's speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort. And from this, the opportunities and challenges over and above what government has recognized would be a very valuable input. And for those opportunities and challenges that the government has recognized, I would like you all to apply your mind and form yourselves into relevant small groups to tell us that you have identified all right, but this is the way to go about it, and this is how your next 25 years policy should be laid upfront, ecosystem, and also give us a sense of certainty in policy. So reports with this kind of a TOR spread over those challenges and opportunities which the government may have not identified as yet would actually open up a lot of conversation and also chance for the policymakers to actually come up with robust law. So I would honestly invite people to get back to the drawing board and come up with a lot of things about what the government stated and what the government has not.
Thank you for that suggestion, ma'am. We will certainly take that up, and I appreciate your comments about the inputs. And like I said, I just want to reassure you that we look at the inputs that we provide as a means for policy making for government. And the inputs that we provide, I think, has to be done not from an individual company perspective or sectoral perspective, but what is the national interest. And that's something that's clearly something that we will keep on. May I now call upon Mr. Harshvardhan Agarwal, Vice President, FICCI, to deliver the book.
Nirmala Sitharaman, Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Government of India, President FICCI, dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, business leaders, members of media, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege to present a vote of thanks to Honorable Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji. Madam, first of all, I would like to compliment you for delivering a balanced budget while maintaining the underlying commitment to fiscal responsibility. You have presented a balanced, progressive, and growth-oriented budget that argues well for India's resilience, as well as long-term development and lays the foundation for new India. President FICCI and other members have already expressed the optimism and renewed hope that this budget has brought to the industry. I share similar sentiments. Efforts towards ease of doing business have already been the hallmark over the last 9 years, and when we see further simplification and rationalization being announced in budget, it infuses optimism in the industry. Measures such as entity DG locker for secure storing and sharing of documents with the business ecosystem would greatly improve the way India Inc. does business. Moreover, in this budget, we have seen pragmatic solutions to MSMEs' financing problems, especially the move from an accrual-based payment system to a cash-based one that will ensure MSMEs don't suffer as a result of delayed payment. Going ahead, we look forward to further simplification of rules and laws for small enterprises, enabling them to scale up and grow into medium and large enterprises. We eagerly await the passage of proposed Jan Vishwas bill that will amend 42 central acts. The huge thrust laid on capital expenditure bill is a huge positive and was much needed to smoothly steer the economy through the global headwinds that may pose a challenge. We see a build-up to last year's thrust on transport infrastructure, and this should help in bringing down the logistic costs over the medium term. Cost of doing business will, after all, play a critical role in making India the global leader in coming decades, and we are pleased to see government's consistency and commitment towards implementation of that vision. We have benefited from good demand and policy support in this fiscal year, which is also reflected in the tax buoyancy seen this year. I compliment Finance Minister for her focus on giving a further boost to consumption through huge infrastructure capex as well as revision in personal income tax structure. This will ensure that demand remains healthy and Indian economy remains resilient to any global shocks. We are confident that the government will continue to remain vigilant to the global developments and will take proactive measures to ensure that we do not falter on our growth targets. In closing, I would once again compliment the Finance Minister for laying down a comprehensive budget that will rejuvenate the growth drivers of the economy, giving a push to the production capacities, improve infrastructure and logistics in the country, reduce the cost inefficiencies, boost exports, and generate employment in the country amid mounting challenges posed by slowing global growth. It is a great opportunity to Indian industry to partner with the government and play a key role in the overall development of economy, given that the government has put the right enablers in place. Madam, we shall collate the industry feedback on various issues and suggestions from our members and share the same with your office. We once again thank you for spending your time and engaging in a meaningful interaction with our members today. Thank you.